All right, we got Purple Politics report from the Heartland, a special edition coming in on May 20th here, 2020. We are deep in the heart of quarantine. We have Pops in the place to be able to help us get an update. What's going on in the Heartland today? How are you doing?
We're doing real good here. It was just a beautiful, wonderful day. It seems like lately, since you started this 15 days ago, most of the time it's cold, wet, and rainy. Minnesota, beautiful today. Must have been 75, crystal clear. We were up at a cabin today on Lake Zumbro that we had in your youth, and it got sold. So it was wonderful memories of the good old days being lake people.
That's awesome.
So it was good. We could not remember the name of your jet ski. We had Golden Boy and then your Yellow Beast. I have no idea. It's hard to believe on how at the time you're in something, you think, I'll never forget this. And then 5, 10 years later, you have no memory. And where I'm going with that is kind of this same thing. We're in this COVID. At the time, it is big deal. It's a real deal. But it might be interesting in 10 or 15 years, we'll go, golly, what were those times like? And that's why this is special that you said, Dad, let's do a video. So this is good. This will remember, the grandkids will be going, Grandpa, didn't you wear that yellow shirt an awful lot? It's my Minnesota Gopher shirt. And I think looking back at these answers, probably yes. In COVID times, I think we got a little lax in shaving. I'm trying to have structure. Mundane is meaningful. And I'm trying to do some mundane things, but make them meaningful. Tomorrow I'll be shaved. I'll try to put on a different shirt. I got to stop eating so much ice cream at night. And that's kind of things. Where have you seen you've been slipping? I know we both are trying to do the right thing, giving meaning to mundane, getting up, making your bed, eating healthy, working out, but it's easy to slip into not doing the right thing.
My biggest thing is still being productive as much as I would like to be during the day. I think that we have this kind of false expectation that we have like all the time in the day, and I just don't feel that way. Like friends, family are calling all the time. You know, so like, but all the projects you're working on, the teams are like, we have all the time in the world. Let's get it done. Love that, but then you do some days and you realize I actually don't have any time today. You know, like I'll be catching up with you, catching up with Dee, editing some stuff.
But you've got so many irons in the fire too, and I think a lot do, but I think you have more irons in the fire than most. So I can see it's probably a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you pick at everything a little bit, but yeah, you think you have more time, but you really just don't.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. Pre-COVID, everybody would say, golly, I just wish we had a longer weekend. I could just like a longer weekend, where now I can't even remember what day of the week it is. I mean, it's literally
right.
So indistinct, but we try to be busy. We do Zooms every day, trying to be busy. You and I know, in real estate and writers groups and startups and all this stuff. So it's been good. It's all good. Hey, here's the reports today. And golly, it's just, once they start deep diving in this a year from now, it'll be really interesting, because states can be doing things totally opposite and getting baffling results. Into the baffling section again. So we always kind of give the states, we always start out with Minnesota. I think we're about 780 deaths. The baffling thing, I think we're 139 deaths per million. Iowa, which is right here, and Wisconsin, Iowa in particular, is at like 83 deaths, I think, per million. And they're very lax, and we're very structured. It'll be interesting as they dig down in the demographics and why some people were a lot more hardcore and structured, and they had worse results. It's baffling.
To me, before the results are in, I think if you just look at it from a place of logic, it comes down to the proximity that you live in, the amount of density that your area has, and then specific lifestyle choices, like, you know, how small are your core little groups in different areas, how like isolated are your social your social life, like in what type of bubble do you live in. And when you're in a smaller town and more rural area, your bubble is just tighter. That doesn't mean that you might actually have more close friends than I do living in a big city. It has nothing to do with like that. But after that 20 people that you might interact with on a weekly basis, that 20 people doesn't interact with a group of people that then gets to China, that has that next connection within that 14-day span. Where if you live in a bigger city, that 6 degrees of separation from these types of disasters, it's just more available. So I think it just shows kind of the interconnectivity of each city. We strive so much to be at a city that's on the pulse, but when you're on the pulse, you're closer to these types of eruptions.
That's a real good point. Well, my core group is not 20. My core group is about 4. I probably go on 20 different interactions, social media wise, but the core group is your mom and I and your sister and a couple other family members. We've been pretty hardcore. California, you're at 3,500, a little over 3,500 deaths at 89 per million. Texas, in California, as everyone knows now, is about 40 million. We're going, California's 40 million people, Texas at 30 million, Florida's at 20, and New York at about 20. But the stats are different. California at 3,500 and 89 per million. Texas is at about 1,423 people, 49 per million, and they've been out of lockdown for quite a while and never did the lockdown Minnesota did. And they're like a third of what our numbers are, which is baffling. A third per million. Florida's at 2,100 at 98 per million. And then New York, of course, and Massachusetts and New Jersey is off the chart. They're at like 28,000 plus deaths.
But,
and then
now, although the states might have not had as rigorous regulations, just like my sister down in Dallas, but her lifestyle as far as this COVID thing has been the same as mine. So the people actually have all made collectively the same choices.
She's elected to do that. They didn't have to. I think the state was more lenient, but they were pretty selective in staying at home and going pretty low key.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Dallas had bigger regulations, but I do think more collectively, all of us kind of had to make these different adjustments almost all across the board. So I guess I don't look at it as white and black as like, oh well, California was way more locked down in Texas. From calling my sister every single day, it seems like we were actually both the same amount of lockdown. There was nowhere that she could go with her kids to be able to they couldn't go eat. She couldn't go to a nail salon. She couldn't go to a barber. Her kids didn't go to school. Her husband couldn't go to work.
And your lockdown was similar as to Minnesota, but right across the border in Iowa, they didn't have nearly the lockdown we did, and they're having far better numbers. Once again, it's the density maybe.
But so has relatives in Iowa, have they been continuing on with their normal lifestyle though?
Much more normal than we have, I would say.
Okay.
Much more. So the big buzzword's granular. Let's dig down into it in the future and see what happens. But I think there'll be a lot of stats to look at. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And sadly, we are coming up on that big number. I think we're by game night right now, we're probably at 95,000 deaths in America, which means 100,000 is right around the corner. And when's the peak going to be? Is it going to be 120,000, 150,000? And then the big looming question is, what's going to happen in the fall? Is it going to be a second round, kind of like the Spanish flu, where things took off again? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're certainly, to take some fear out of it and to persevere, we're certainly in a far better position, as we all know, with hospital beds, with ventilators, with PPEs. So that's all good.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's on board. You know, there's you see on the news where people aren't on board and doing this and that, and it's like, generally speaking, what I see in Rochester, we're pretty much on board. And from what I'm hearing, you guys and your sister in Dallas, everyone's taking it pretty serious, being appropriate, reasonable, and doing the best they can.
The only, I think, huge difference is the amount of people wearing masks and where they're wearing masks. Going out on a jog today in LA, I would have this down like in between blocks that were just not congested, and where we're not congested, but like literally had no people, I would have this down. But then when I would come closer to people, I would put it up, and every single person downtown Los Angeles had a mask on today.
They did.
And like, it was an absolute anomaly to see someone in my like 3-mile adventure. I maybe saw 5 people without a mask on.
Well, no, that's interesting, because in Rochester, it's going to be dependent on the store you go into. You go into a Menards, it's mandatory. You have to have a mask on, and you're going to be not let in if you don't have a mask. And then like Fleet Farm, nobody's got a mask on.
Oh, so really? Okay.
Yeah. So we have to make improvements as we move forward. There'll be plenty of time to make improvements, but it's baffling. It's still not consistent as you'd hope.
This is make it fashion in LA. Like, I don't see us being able to go in stores without masks on in Los Angeles until the following January.
Let's see with your mask up, because I'm going to start bandanaing.
Yeah.
Because I have a N95, and it's very difficult to use glasses with it.
Well, the thing is too,
the glasses actually help it, right?
With this one, you almost need glasses a little bit. It just pinches the top the way that it's needed to just finish off that tightness. So I love it. It feels good. It doesn't get foggy. I don't know how effective it is as far as being able to not transmit this virus to other people. But then again, I have to look at it and say, when I'm jogging with this thing on, it makes it harder. Like, it makes my breathing more difficult. So with just that small little thing, it does something.
Yeah. Well, it certainly gives a barrier to droplets going quite as far as they could. But there's actually some pushback on masks, is that, you're getting more carbon dioxide. It's kind of upsetting breathing. So I bet there's huge opportunities for you entrepreneurs to take the bandana concept and improve on it.
Like, back in the day, if you told everybody to like sneeze into the Dracula style, isn't that what we call it? Or like whatever.
Yeah.
That took a while, but I remember in school we were doing it, and I was one of those kids that early on made fun of it, but I only will Dracula now. Maybe we all have to start being like down breathers. Like, breathe through your nose instead of your mouth. Because your nose is directing the air down, your mouth would be directing the air out. So it's like, just, if you want to like slow down transmission, I always feel like if I'm breathing out of my nose doesn't direct the air to be like projectiling out. My nose directs the air to be like going down.
I think where we're missing the boat is visors. I think visors and some modification will be huge in the future. Everything's directed down. It's impermeable going forward. and you can see the face. So I think it does everything and more. So I think visors it'll be fun to see if I predicted anything right. But I think for the next rounds, as we move forward, there'll be a huge breakthrough in visors.
Yeah.
So
I would be willing, like maybe we put a little tracker in my nose. I can wear an app and it'll be connected to my phone. It'll release that data to Apple every day, who then can upload it to the United States. And they'll be like, LJ's a nose breather. He doesn't need to wear a mask. But if 90% of my breaths are mouth breathers, they go, no, like you're going to be a masker until you stop being a mouth breather.
Well, this will be interesting. I do think there's going to be a lot of individual monitoring, which they're going to say your stats are in that data, but we personally aren't looking at you. That'll be interesting. I think there'll be more deep dives, personal dives than you possibly can know.
Yeah.
Just what do you call these? Well, here, let me give you an example of something. This is baffling to me. Social media, not directly related to this, but related in the internet world, which is all new to me, because I've come so far in 3 months, which is crazy. So I'm trying to get a row machine. So I Google row machines. I think like on used row machines. Okay, and I just do it once, just kind of thinking about it. Today, I've gotten like 20 out of the blue. Hey, check out my row machine from this and that. What do we call that? Service engines, or what is this thing? What's that, SER or SRO or?
Well, an SEO is a search engine optimization. That
Okay, so
that wouldn't have. What that is that's more in regards to your ability to find a business and how they scale on that find. So if you type in row machine as a business, and if I sold row machines, I would want to be able to occupy a lot of that top territory. That's the search engine optimization of, if Loring Stead in Minnesota goes, I want a row machine, you're going to see me. I don't know exactly what it's called when, like, you get, it's like this, I think it might be one of the largest lawsuits that comes of our time. I think when people talk about like the redistribution of wealth, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens through like Apple, Facebook, and Google having to pay us all like $10,000 a piece because they figure out somehow they've like illegally been taking our auditory things that are coming just out of my mouth right now to then say, oh, if I said Allbirds in this conversation, this shoe company Allbird will be most likely what will come up on my Instagram feed within the next day and a half. It's scary. I've had it happen where I never Googled it. It was only a conversation that I was talking about. And this is how specific it was. I was sitting down with one of my business partners, and we were talking about getting...
So are you talking about like our little Siris we have in every room, those little, hey Siri?
I don't have a Siri. I don't have an Alexa. That's like a whole nother level of, I think, invasion.
Because that's kind of creepy. We try to turn our Alexas off at night because it's just creepy.
This was only our phones were in the room.
Okay.
And I didn't touch my phone at all. I never Googled this product. I was talking to a business partner about we should get a 40-inch TV mount for our wall. So
that's
like
pretty specific.
Ridiculously specific. I hadn't even bought a TV yet. We were just discussing like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if like we got a screen to put up on this wall to be able to help us monitor some of the things that we were doing within our business daily. And let's get like a 40-inch TV bracket to be able to put it there. And we were talking like, oh, should it swivel or should it be one of the that stay in place? I go to my phone. I start looking down on Instagram, just scrolling through my friend's feed. And a bracket for a TV of 40 inches gets advertised to me on my Instagram feed.
That's pretty spooky.
It was bizarre. And I'm like, look, he was sitting there Googling it on his phone. We have no connectivity on our phones as far as like sharing any accounts. And
that you know of.
That we know of.
Yeah.
And
I could see that in the future too, where if you're within 6 feet of a friend, because that is your group, if they're doing something, they are assuming you're interested because you're talking. And I think they're doing a lot more to us than we even know.
Yeah, and well, you know, one of the issues with TikTok, for example, was regardless if you give TikTok permission to
Just give 10 seconds on what TikTok is, because in 20 years, it'll have TikToked its way right out. What is TikTok in this era?
TikTok, yeah, well, it'll probably evolve, right? It'll probably be more like Instagram, where it's more of a social feed that allows us to share a bunch of different things. But right now, TikTok is just a video app that is, it's short videos. I think like the longest video you can have is like, it's less than a minute.
Your sister and all of her friends are doing TikTok back and forth, and they're having a wonderful time.
But so all it is it's a music dance app. So you upload the most recent dance move that's available, that kind of like trends throughout the week and through the month, and people upload their own version of these specific dances. And TikTok got heavily deleted by a lot of people about 3 months ago because there was something within their permissions that if you have TikTok up on your phone within your app store or within your like dashboard on your phone, you are not only giving TikTok permission to the things that are on your app, but you're giving TikTok permission to take information from any app that you have on your phone.
Yikes.
And one of the problems that people had with TikTok in specific with this has happened with Apple before, this has happened with Facebook, this has happened with Google in different types of forms. But TikTok, the ownership of it is really confusing. It kind of goes all the way back to TikTok's potentially actually owned by the Chinese government. That right now is a huge conspiracy theory statement. But there's some there is a few granules of potential truth there to lead to that large of a conspiracy theory statement. And so people are like, whoa, I'm potentially giving the Chinese government all of my information.
It's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how much of that stuff is true or not true. Same way I'm in lots of different groups, but a certain group I was in today got hacked with a big, they had 1,600 people on Tuesday night. It got hacked, and it was a Zoom, and the buzz today was that Zoom is owned by the Chinese and all the information going back to China. It's like, I had no idea, but it's just baffling, isn't it? It seems like China's getting blamed for everything, maybe, which they should. Who knows?
I think
Hunan definitely. Hunan virus definitely. The rest, I don't know.
I feel like Zoom's owned. Isn't Zoom an SF company?
I have no idea. See, your generation is so much more in the know than we are. We're maybe more in the know on staying calm, been there before, don't get excited, ho-hum, where yours is seems to be at times more excitable. Certainly age groups more impressionable, and we all go through that and you improve. But certainly far more knowledgeable than we are. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and
hey, tying in, I don't know if anybody got to see. Go to 2019. The Persevere present is good on Purple Politics. It's really, really worthwhile. And tonight, tying into that, at a group, we had a guy who was with the 82nd Airborne in World War II. And 103 guys during the World War II period were pushed through the 82nd. And there's only 436 guys left. And only 4 of them could go back for the 75th anniversary. And he was one of them. Oh my God, did he have great stories. It was great stories. He was
Wow.
Don Munson. I can say his name. It's public. He, at 16 years of age, he journaled, and he woke up one morning at like 2:40 in the morning, and he goes, "I'm out of here." Zumbrota, Minnesota, on the way from Rochester to the cities. He went down to the bus depot. The Greyhound bus came in. He knew the bus driver because his dad had a trucking business, and he knew a lot of the guys. And the guy goes, "Donnie, you got to help me tonight. I am so tired. I cannot make this run to the cities. Can you drive the bus for me?" So the bus driver went to the back. Donnie got in, drove, basically running away from home, kind of, headed up to the cities, enlisted at 16, had to lie that he was 16, they had these connection phones back then where if you made a call, you called into like a common person who then took this little plug out saying hi to you and plugged it into someplace else. Well, somehow that person was his relative, and he convinced her to play the role of his mom and tell the recruiter, I'm giving you permission, and that's my son.
Wow.
Well, lo and behold, 5 months later, from Zumbrota to 5 months later, he's paratrooping into Europe. Is that crazy? I mean, and we're being asked to stay home on our couches, and we're complaining, and they're doing that. And I'm not, whatever, everyone's got to have their own opinion on things, but it's baffling what their generation did. And it was just one great story after another. Can you imagine running away from home at 16 to join the service? So he goes from like Zumbrota to Fort Benning Jump Camp. He was there like 2 weeks, off to New York on a freighter going across to Europe, like 130 in this big caravan going across the Atlantic, because they were bunching up because concerned that submarines would get them. Then they're over in Europe, or in Ireland first, then England. And then the day that they flew out, I think he said there was 5,000 planes that left England that day. It was unbelievable. And there would only be 18 in a plane, I think. And he could actually look out like over London, and everyone was outside waving because they knew it was up, just going, "Good luck, guys." It was just, you cried 5 times listening to it. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, and then somebody said, "Well, how many times did you jump out of a plane?" And he said, I jumped out of a plane once. I got pushed out 23 times. just kind of knucklehead stories.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just kind of a silly one too. The 82nd Airborne to this day in Europe is the most notorious group for having gone through the most condominiums of any group. Condominiums, not condoms. Condom, not condominiums.
Oh, okay.
Real estate. Condoms. Okay, but bear with us. So he says, and it's an unearned recognition, because everybody thought, "Oh God, these guys are just wild men. They're using these." The condoms were used to cap the top of their rifles, because they would be jumping out of planes, and a lot of times your rifle would be nose in the dirt. So he literally probably went through 5 condoms a day, just keeping the damn dirt out of his gun. So that's where the condoms were going. He says he wishes they had earned their reputation, but they hadn't. And he would go with never let the truth get in the way of a good story, because he says we're known as the group that used the most condoms, and he goes, the reality is we're just capping our.
That's crazy.
Fun. So it was kind of fun. And then somebody said to him something about, "Were you ever taken like hostage?" And he goes, "Yeah, by an English wife or something." And so just fun stories. So
That's
we're trying
awesome.
to get him teed up for the troops this year. As you know, Mom and I are involved with the World War II group on that.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can even pull that off. He's hoping we pull it off. He's 92, still drives. He's running around like unbelievable. So it's like 4 guys left. 4 made it over there for the 75th, and one of them's right here in Rochester and Zumbrota. Pretty incredible.
That is
So
wild.
needless to say, that was good stuff today.
Mm-hmm.
So, all good. Hey, now, for those who are just coming in, we usually start with politics. It might end with religion, might end with anything else, but politics just gets this toe in the door, and it's a dad and a son talking through the COVID. But we should talk about one politics today, and that's what's happening with Biden. Who's he going to pick? Because we've really kind of tweaked that a little bit, and some are saying, well, he said it's got to be a woman. Some say Stacey Abrams.
How did he say that? He just said it's got to be a woman.
My hunch is, I don't really know. The further I've gotten deep into it on both sides, I don't know if they get to say as much as you think. I think the DNC and the RNC, the national organizations, and the people that fund the Democrats and Republicans have a far more greater say about it than you'd think. For example, on Biden right now, he's a fine guy, and whether you vote for him or not, we'll have to see. Do you really think he's going to decide who's running for him? No way. There's probably 20 to 50 major fundraisers. They're going to talk between themselves over the next 2 weeks to 2 months, and Joe's going to get a call one night in his basement, and this is who we're picking for you. Because the VP this time is a big thing because his health is an issue. You know, he might not, say he gets elected, and he might or might not, I don't know. But I think a lot would agree that we have to have a solid VP this time because they might serve. So I think on the rise is, I think you had mentioned Elizabeth Warren, which is interesting. I think certainly Kamala Harris's star is going down. Warren's kind of staying the same. Klobuchar's gone down. Stacey Abrams may be up for a little bit. And then Whittier, the gal from Michigan, he needs Michigan. So that gal, the governor of Michigan, they're talking about her. So it'll be interesting. But I think Biden gets to hear about it. He probably has a vote of one on a group of 20. He's probably on a call going, what do you think? I think there's a lot more committee things done than you think. And who's on the committees? The people who fund things. You and I have been there. It is what it is.
But it just seems like a weird, that's kind of like, I don't know how he specifically stated it, but if he's like, it's going to be a woman and like start lining up, we're going to figure out who it is. That's a really weird thing to create. Now, if he said, I have a short list of VP candidates, and it so happens that they're all women, it goes, oh, okay, like, yeah, like this time, like the most qualified people in the country of what Biden currently thinks of, that short list just happens to be women this time. But to like be like, oh, well, the VP's just, this has got to be a woman this time. That's a really weird backwards way that I just think like, if it just seems like kind of counter to what like the feminist movement is actually all about, right? Like it's
poor in my estimations. I think it's doesn't give me confidence, and it's poor marketing. LG and I were both on a marketing forum today for several hours, and marketing is everything. And that doesn't seem like good marketing. It doesn't seem like they're approaching that subject like they should have, when what you said would have been far more appropriate way to do it. It seems like so many things aren't appropriate and reasonable.
Yeah, it's I'm not saying like that's the way you're supposed to say it. I'm saying that if that's not what's actually happening, then your reason behind this is flawed. And that's not what like this is. I can't speak for like the feminist movement. I have no grounds in that conversation. I don't know enough about that particular kind of initiative in order to speak to it. But like from a peripheral just stance, I go, well, that's kind of a weird position to take on this. It's like it's almost discrediting it in a way.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
But that, I mean, do what you got to do. That's some of the reasons why I think it's a little bit goofy for me to wholeheartedly be a Democrat. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that all comes down.
Yeah.
And here we get to they're on the field. We're not. We're just in the grandstands watching, and we'll see what takes place.
Yeah, we have
What's
easy
got
shop.
What's happening in California? Any like what
Well,
will be happening this weekend? Any
I
beach changes? House or storefronts opening, closing? What's going on?
well, I read an article in the New York, or sorry, in the Los Angeles Times today, and they were pretty mad at Newsom because of the beaches. And right now, the beaches you can only swim, jog, or surf, and you can't like stay on the sand, right? And
There was something about wet sand and dry sand. You can be wet towards the surf, but you can't be on the dry sand. What's that
I
about?
don't really. I think that was taken out of context a little bit by the Republicans to make it kind of goofy. I think that was to show just the goofiness with the idea. But the article was this big, kind of long driven dialogue of saying that this is very discriminatory because not everybody can jog, swim, or surf. And like being able to be outside is vital to your physical health but also your mental health. And they're like,
So it's like the difference between you and I. Those three things you can do, and I couldn't do one of those. So he's kind of being selective against me.
yeah, it's just saying like, wait,
I just
so
want to go down on the sand and sit.
what if that's not only the only thing that you want to do, but what if that's the only thing you can do?
Oh, absolutely.
So
That's discriminatory. I'm with them. Am I actually agreeing with the LA Times? Wow.
well, that's well. The funny thing with me is the reason I'm obviously more conservative than I am liberal is I love it when these liberal politics get caught in this mess, which is like they're trying so hard to like play this like line, and they totally miss that. They just shows that like when they're just trying to drive politics and policies, they always take the stance of being the most moral, most just, and the individuals that are taking that high ground. And it's sometimes in these like simple policy changes, it's like, yo guys, like one, I don't know if we can always live by these specific standards that the left tries to present itself as, but two, like sometimes when you avoid logic, you also avoid you are being discriminatory. If you sometimes lead with logic, you'll find yourself maybe in better situations than just trying to nitpick and be cafeteria about what policies you think are good or think are not good. And then what else was what was the other thing that was huge?
As you're thinking about that, you are so spot on when rules are hypocritical and the rules are for you, but not for me, kind of. Like Cuomo got bit on that, where he's out looking for his house, and he wasn't hunkered down like he said he was. Didn't De Blasio in New York get caught at some health club or walking a far distance away? So rules are for you and not for me. It's like, really? And just in Penn's and Mayo Clinic too. Remember Penn's came to Mayo? He didn't have the mask on, but you're supposed to have the mask on. Penn's or Mayo Clinic, they had the mask on, but Penn's didn't. Shame on both. It makes the patient look like an idiot. The rules are for me, but not for all you guys. I was talking to my buddy who works in the construction industry, and at St. Mary's, he drives a cement truck. When you're on the St. Mary Mayo Clinic campus, even in a truck, you have to have a mask on. So, like, to them, anybody that has to abide by the rules, it's like, what do you just think we're idiots then? Why is it for us and not for you? So back to check out Maskgate before. Shame on both the institutions of the Republican Party and Mayo.
And
Shame on that.
another big fired up topic right now in California is Governor Newsom is cutting the funding for schools.
Okay.
And which is really weird because it's in a situation where in order to open up schools at all in the fall. A lot of the proposed plans are kind of going like on and off, where or like it's like every other day, where students will be coming in every other day. It's just going to be more costly. Any time that you change things around, it's going to be more costly. It just there's time and energy, and time and energy turn into dollars. It's just simple.
That's
like
the way
that.
it goes.
It's just the way that it goes.
Yeah.
And he's cutting funding for schools. And what he's doing is he's blaming it on Trump. And he says, if Trump gives us appropriate federal aid, we will reinitiate our funding for schools. And to me, that kind of feels like you're in a shootout and you're using a child as your shield.
Absolutely.
And I just think that's wrong.
Both parties are guilty of that. This isn't selective to any one. There's different instances where that can happen for both, and it's baffling.
Yeah, and I'm like, and as I hope to be able to prove, like at least with my current thought process, I'm never going to be the type of person that's saying we should cut funding for schools. I do think that we need to refine the processes for that, and I do think that like if there's institutions like Harvard with $40 billion endowments, I'm not going to care about them getting funding. I'm going to say, you don't deserve funding ever. And it's bizarre that like, this is something that like a Democratic governor who's supposed to stand on all these principles that this particular party lives and dies by, which is making sure that we look out for the most underserved, the most unprotected group in the world, in the country. He is actually one of the people that governs some of the most underserved individuals in our country, which is LA Unified School District, and he's cutting their funding.
Yeah. Well, it's like they're playing a game of chess and those are pawns, and that's just so inappropriate, not reasonable, and unfortunately is done in politics.
It's weird, but he's still looked at as like one of the most revered, like awesome Democratic governors. I'm like, I don't know, I'm surprised he's not getting more checked on that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting talking about that directly. It's like Newsom versus Cuomo versus Whittier from Michigan. There's like a lot of rising stars. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. And if anybody disagrees with that or thinks that I'm only burning the Democrats on this, I do think the Republicans need to check Trump on the economy right now. I think he's absolutely blowing the stimulus packages to be able to help our economy get up and running. Like
not getting it to the people who need it.
He's just not giving it to the people that need it. He's inappropriately dispersed it to groups that he has connections with, and to institutions like Harvard and the Lakers and Ruth Chris through two different groups. So huge L on that, and that's one of the huge problems that I have with him. When people say I don't think he can lead us through this, I go, there's some good reason and validity behind that statement when you say that, because he's supposed to be our economic savior, and I think he's totally blown the economic element of this. I know that you can blame everybody else, but as the president, I think that at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, and you're the most blamable person in the country. It's just the way that it is.
Well, the whole purple politics concept goes back to, as LJ would tell you, the Republicans are red, the Democrats are blue, and there's a group of people in the middle, like LJ and I, that just don't have a home yet. You go in to vote, you pull the curtain, and you go, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils again? So on both sides, shame on them. Of 340 million people, this is the best we got? Are you kidding me? Vote for Biden if you want, but is he the best you got? Trump, vote for him or not, he's the best we got? It's I think he's strong in economy, and Biden's got some, Trump's strong in economy, Biden's got some strengths, but really, that's the best we got on both. That is baffling. Just
Yeah.
baffling.
Well, I mean, I think that
Disappointing.
Biden, if he keeps it really close to the vest on running, uh, eliminate as many gaffes as you possibly can. Drink more Red Bull, look more lively. But he could really run off of the idea that him and Barack rebuilt our economy during the recession, right? Like, and the Republicans would obviously fight back, saying, "Well, a recession's a recession, and you climb out of it. That's how it works." But we did grow out of a recession during their tenure, and if I were him, I would just ride or die that going into November.
That'll be interesting to see if if they just ride or die on Trump. I think they lose. If they ride or die on economy, on that issue, they have a chance. But he is going to talk, and he's a gaffe a minute. It's comical. It's a gaffe a minute. And then in Trump, I think if he rides or dies, the economy's got to make it, and he's got to get over this COVID. Now he is handling it. It'll be interesting. The whole 2020 again, unbelievable. Who would have thought it would be this interesting?
Right. You know, I think that one of the reasons I think Trump is so adamant about always bringing Obama up is that he really thinks that he's battling Obama when he sees Biden. Like,
Oh yeah.
like he's preparing that Biden's going to take all of Obama's accomplishments and roll himself in them and say, I am obviously not as good as Obama.
I'm
But,
Obama light.
but I was there. I saw what he did. Your greatest president, I was right there. I was a part of the strategy meetings. I was actually a part of a lot of his victories. And this is how he's going to clear it up. I think Trump would be a lot smarter to stop always bringing up Obama. Look more towards the future.
Absolutely.
And then when you're preparing for Biden, you go, Biden, you're not Obama. Sorry, I know that you wish you were, but you're not. He's not doing this at all. So I think it's a huge failure on Trump's part to remove Obama from the conversation, to go, you are just Biden to me, and you're not ready to be the president of the United States. I know that you're around him, but you're not him, so I can't help you with that. My presidency stands on its own. I'm looking towards the future. Barack seems to be a president that was great, and but I'm leading towards the future. I can't think about what he's always done. Like, I know that he would just set up the facts the way that you want him to be and say, I led you as an extension from Obama, and I led you out of whatever you thought was negative, and I raised up whatever you thought was positive about him. We just kept on rolling. He's not going to do that, but I think that would be a really smart strategy to start playing now. And he should have started it like 3 years ago, which is just don't always sit around and bash the last president. It doesn't do
Absolutely.
it doesn't do you any good.
The public is just plain tired of it on both sides. Just
Yeah.
plain tired. Well, the Democrats are already talking about, well, maybe it's the Republicans floating the idea that the Democrats are saying they're going to impeach Trump if he gets reelected. Who knows if it's right or wrong? The public is tired of it. The people of the Purple Party are really tired of it. Really
Yeah.
tired. We're kind of done with it. So, hey,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, and it's just the way that it is. I think over the next few presidencies, we're gonna always have to hear the next president be bothered by the last one. We obviously heard that quite a bit over the last few terms, and it's just kind of annoying. I would hope the next president can show up and not do that. I don't think the one after Trump will do that, because they're gonna be Trump bashers. That's gonna be part of their MO as well. But the next individual who wants to step up and say, we're actually going to look towards the future, when you reference the last president, just say, well, I got voted in for a reason, and we're moving on. We're moving forward. It would be awesome.
I totally agree. We're seeing if you have an interview with a friend of mine tomorrow night. or not. It'll depend on if he got endorsed by the party of his choice tonight.
Oh, okay,
So we'll
cool.
see. I'll give you more scoop on that tomorrow. I did want to just do a mini dive in. We've touched on companies going out. I think little companies are just brutal. This is the death knell of little companies. Tens of thousands have gone out that may never come back. But then I think we heard Pier 1 is going out. Oh my God, even your mom and sister were going, Pier 1 is going out? That's
Wow.
that they're going down. And then just locally, this is a shocker. You know, we're in the most stable economy in the world, in America. Minnesota is one of the most stable states. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, we're right there. But undoubtedly, Rochester is in the mecca of just stability.
Right.
It's a foundational rock. Here's the headline today: Pandemic pushes Mayo Clinic's finances off a cliff. Their net operating income was plummeted by 88%. They furloughed or laid off 23,000 employees, and their net operating income had topped $1 billion for the first time last year in the clinic's history. For a previous high was 617 million for the year, and now it's just plummeted. So it's really, so if Rochester's coughing with pneumonia, literally, the world's got to be brutal.
Because that's 2/3 of their staff.
I don't know what their staff is now, but it's a significant amount. I would think their staff is. I think you might be right.
It's always been like 33,000, I think.
That's what I thought. So also,
I mean, if you told me that it was 50 now, I guess I wouldn't be surprised because they seem to be ever growing.
They're in Scottsdale, they're in Jacksonville, so you might be right too. But I always thought it was like mid-30s too. But it's shockwaves, huge, big deal in Rochester, Minnesota. And then you wonder too, when are people? You know, we're dependent on the world coming here for healthcare. Do you think people are going to be jumping on planes from overseas coming to America for healthcare anytime soon?
Right.
This is going to make, I think, the 2008-9 recession look junior high. I think this is going to be a big, brutal thing.
Oh, it's not even going to be close. It's going to be, yeah, like you're saying, like if it's going to be a middle school feeling relative to this, like pro.
This is a pro bad things coming out.
Yeah.
Pro bad things.
What you know, and I think, you know, just you being more connected to a medical community, that I have a lot of people are baffled to hear that people within hospitals are furloughed or laid off. Everyone has been built.
No sense.
Well, everyone's been built up in their mind to think that like all the hospitals are running at 125% capacity, and everybody within that unit is just dying. And that's not true. It's the ICUs, it's those beds that have been devastating. Most hospitals, majority of their revenues are similar to any other business, which is like,
it's elective chosen procedures. Your hip surgery, your knee surgery, your stent procedure. They stopped all of those, which in the future, there's no way they can do it like that again. And we will learn from this, but we really have driven off into the ditch hugely. And once again, we've all gone to the ditch, literally and figuratively in our life, where you drive into the ditch and you drive out. We are deep into the ditch this time, and the ditch has water in it. And I don't know if we have a 4-wheel drive big enough to drive out of it in any time soon. This is going to be a bugger. This is brutal.
So for example, like when a nurse is in an ICU unit, we've been seeing, like, we've obviously all seen the videos of a nurse crying and saying, like, this has been one of the most devastating experiences that I've ever witnessed in my life.
They're overwhelmed.
Within my career. Why is it that if you're in that section of the hospital, the ICU, are they not able to take somebody from like radiology or take somebody from orthopedics and train them up to help cushion the blow that's happening in the ICU units?
The answer is somewhat, but that's such a specialized area. It takes time to do that. So yes and no. They can tweak it a little bit, not as on and off as a switch as you'd think. But the big thing is they did off switch it 80%, which is the electives done, not coming. So literally floors are closed, which make no sense. You know, you can say what you want about COVID. It was real. It is a big deal. But there's an element of it that we might have, in some instances, overcalled this a little bit. They said there was going to be 2 million deaths in the country, maybe 2.5. There was going to be 71,000 deaths in Minnesota. We're at like 777. Then the question is, if we wouldn't have done what we did, would it have been as bad? And the answer is, you would think this helped, but in the past, things like this happened, and we didn't have shutdown, and we also made it. So there's going to be even unknowns after all the stats are done. But I don't think we want to drive down the ditch as far next time as we did this time. We are deep in the ditch, and the ditch has got water in it.
I don't like the overcalled it argument on this, because I think it really distracts from the point. I think because like, okay, so if you're like, oh, I think we overcalled it, then people go, well, who overcalled it? Right? And then not who as in like the World Health Organization, even though that would be one of the things that we could point to of who overcalled it. But I really think we have to start going towards what's next. Like, we can't sit here
we've gone from what now to what next. That'd be a great name for a book or an online course. We'll talk about that.
Right. So if we're sitting at halftime and I have one of my teammates, let's say I'm the quarterback, even though I could never be a quarterback. I'm 5'7", 1/4, and I'm 100 and like, I'm like, actually, what am I right now? I'm like 195. I'm in the obese category. So, you know, even though Pelosi's given Trump morbidly obese, I then kind of Googled it to look it up to see what actually morbidly obese is. His stature, he claims that he's 6'3".
Don't believe it.
So, exactly. So I went 6 foot, 6'1" on him. He would have to be about 280 pounds from the little thing that I looked at for him to be morbidly obese. For me, though, obesity was started at 160. Or 180 is where I'm in healthy territory again.
Well, just the background in LJ, he's never been unhealthy in his life. He's fit as a fiddle, and he can give himself a hard time, but he was a superstar, lettered in like 7 sports. This is dad bragging, you can't stop me. And he even had one time 4 touchdowns in a half game. So there, boom.
But I'm just saying, in this little category, what I looked up, I was overweight. Where was I going with my tangent, though? What were we talking about first?
That's a good question. Well, you got talking about Trump, got talking about his obesity, what Pelosi was talking about.
God, I lost my train of thought of where I was going with that because I got out.
And you know what? And that can happen. And that can happen.
Yeah.
And for politicians and can humans, even a dad and son, a train of thought can be lost by a dad trying to get you off the tracks a little bit.
No, just thinking. No, what got me off the tracks is Trump claiming that he was 6'3" on the Wikipedia. I was like, "Are you 6'3"?
Were you going down? You were on how you were surprised on how you were heading into the obese range in theory.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what I started my tangent with, but it had. I can't remember.
And we will get back on that track at some point. You can call me about 3 a.m. and go, "Oh, I know what it was," and that proves that this is a real a real deal here. You're seeing it live and real.
More annoyingly, I'm going to be able to watch the video and see where I started. Realize that I had to sidetrack heavily to get to the 6 3-point, and I lost my way heavily during that.
You know what? And that's okay. All being said, I could be wrong. All being said, sometimes we get off the track. It can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to call me back at about 3 a.m. and tell me what the name of your jet ski was. That's
I know.
more important. So that'll be.
Oh, but what we were talking about is thinking about the game plan of when you're sitting at halftime and I'm like a quarterback, and that's where I got off tangent. I couldn't be a quarterback because of my height and weight. I don't want everybody on the team telling me, yo, you threw all these interceptions, we're down by 30. Like, we're down by 30. We have to realize that as a world right now, as a country, when it comes to the economy and also when it comes to the death toll, we're down.
And probably by 50, and we're down. We're down.
Like, and like last night, I obviously was saying that we were like up as far as a human, we've overcome. We're still surviving. But right now, the little ticker is, shoot, we got to get back out there, and I don't need you to start telling me about every single thing that we went wrong. We need to lock in to what the touchdown is, and we got to figure out what is next. We can't be, I don't want anybody on my team saying, oh, bro, but like, you know, like we really screwed, we started the game slow. And it's like, yeah, we started the game slow, but it's the third quarter. Let's make sure that we don't fuck the third quarter up.
Mm-hmm. But why don't you like the theory where some would say they overcalled it?
Well, I'm saying that it's irrelevant because it's done. So I'm saying like we have to figure out I don't want to like sit around and pitter patter about like did we shut off too quickly or did we not? Because the history books will write that. Like, we're not going to know if we did for the next, like, 30 years. Mm-hmm. Like, hopefully within 10 years, the dust will settle and we'll be able to figure out, like, we can start taking on those grades. Mm-hmm. And we'll, like you're saying, we'll kind of forget about a lot of the stories. But right now, I actually think that we're in such an important time that we kind of have to get head down in order to get through it.
Give everyone a little pass, a little grace, and let's move through it. It's not what's now, it's like what's next. Face to the future. We're in the storm. Make it happen. Take on the rain, take on the storm, and go head first into it. Absolutely.
And I mean that when I look at the reporters being like, Trump, did you close the border? Or when did you not close the border? Or do you care about testing or do you not? And then I also give crap to the Trump when he's like, China started it. So ask China whose fault this is. You know what? We don't know whose fault it is completely yet. We definitely know that the fault started with China, but we don't know why it started yet completely. And we have to look for solutions. We can't be sitting around placing blame if we're actually going to get through it.
Amen to that.
And one of the and honestly, like to be able to get my vote come November, the first quarterback to step up and go, I don't care what fucking happened last. I care about the future. I care about rolling forward. I go, yo, that's my quarterback. That's the guy who I want in this position. I want the guy who has a small memory in this particular instance where he doesn't remember the last receptions, or at least he doesn't care about them. He's only going towards the start. And we're all just sitting around way too much and thinking woulda, coulda, shoulda with every little point.
Anybody who's a true sports person, particularly football, you have to have a short memory. You could care less who fumbled in the first quarter. You could care less about the interception second quarter. What is the next play? The last play means nothing. What's the next play? So I'm dead spot on with you. Purple politics is about solutions, looking forward, not back.
Right. So, and it's interesting, right? At the same time, you can have a short memory of what happened in the first quarter. You can still have a great memory of what happened the last time that you won the championship. you can remember we overcame that deficit. We won that game. These are the little things that we were thinking in our mind to be able to make sure that that happened. So having a short memory doesn't mean that you're not taking history in perspective. You're just not thinking about the small little detailed mistakes that you just made that game. But
There's going to be plenty of time to reflect after the season's over.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, big guy, I think we got a huge day tomorrow on Zoom. I think you do and I do both on some very interesting projects we got going. So, final thoughts from your end.
What are you thinking about today?
Mine would be, again, what I fall back on, it's not where we're at, it's where we're going. We've been through collectively a shitstorm. And there is certainly going to be some foul weather coming up too. We don't know how much, but we know so much more about this storm than we did. We're so much more prepared. We got our slickers on, we got our boots on, the hurricane's out there. We're gonna make it. We're gonna get through this storm like they have in the past. We're gonna persevere with faith and hope, love, and always do those. We're gonna make it.
Yeah, and like my thought would be, act the way that you would hope you would act in this time, as if you were reflecting on it in 5 years in the future. So
great insight.
So live in the moment with being proud of self-reflection and go, that's the way I wanted that's the way that I would talk in the darkest of times. That's the energy that I would be putting out for positive, right? Or if it's like, hey, if I wish I bashed this person more because they were doing wrong things, be that person. But try to look at it in the perspective of a reflection from 5 years from now. And be able to hold yourself to a standard that you would be proud of.
Amen. That is a perfect way to end. That summarizes the purple politics philosophy, I think. Give grace and look to the future.
I love it.
Godspeed. I think I better talk to Mama Bear and go reflect on what we all took place at the cabin tonight, the final thoughts of those days out there. Great memories.
I love it.
Great memories like this. We'll look back on this in 20 years and go, that was fun. As far as the memories. The times weren't fun. Times sucked. But the memories were good.
Yeah, it's all right.
Thank you for making this happen, Purple Politics.
I love it. Godspeed. Love you, Dad.
Faith, family, friends, football, and God bless America, buddy. Your